Broody hen care. How to look after your broody hen from the moment she starts showing signs of going broody through to when she hatches and raises her baby chicks. I'm also going to debunk some common myths that are out there about broody hens, so you might want to stick around for those. And we'll jump straight in with the first myth, that any hen will go broody given the right set of circumstances. This is not true. There are many hens who will never in their life go broody, no matter what the circumstances are. Some breeds are just not broody types, and then other breeds are excessively broody. So if you want your hens to go broody, look for a broody breed. Typically, a broody hen will display signs of broodiness before they actually sit on any eggs. Broodiness is hormonal, as I said, so there are changes taking place in her body. For example, her temperature rises. You may notice she's louder than usual for a few days, calling even though you can't think of anything she might want. They can seem to be trying to escape whatever area they're in. Even if they're free ranging, she can be pacing up and down the fence or at the gate. She could be clucking intermittently or constantly, which is a very typical broody sound. She may be eating more than normal. She could be acting aggressive towards her flockmates or not allowing the rooster to mount her. She could be going in and out of the nesting area a little obsessively and appearing flustered and almost irritated. She could be puffed up, holding her wings out, trying to look as big as possible. She could be wide-eyed with this crazy look in her eyes. She can be hanging around the nesting area, seemingly for no reason, a little aloof. She can also be plucking feathers from her chest. I'll often find that when a hen is going broody, she'll look a little dishevelled or a little dirty. These are all signs to me that signal that a hen is about to sit. I've also noticed that her rooster can become a little more protective of her. With me or even with her other flockmates, it's like he doesn't really want anyone to go near her, which is nice. If you're looking to hatch some eggs, this is definitely the time when you should be gathering them up or sourcing some if you don't have a rooster. You will get the best chance at a really good hatch rate from eggs that have been stored for 1 week. Now, I have hatched eggs with great hatch rates up to 2 weeks old and even up to 3. So you feel your hen might be going broody. How do you give her the best chance of actually setting the eggs? Firstly, leave some fake eggs or golf balls in the nest. A lot of hens won't sit if there are no eggs to sit on. Then again, some breeds will sit on a pebble. Once there's a clutch of eggs, either fake or golf balls, that will entice her to sit on them. The reason I don't recommend leaving real eggs is because they'll get dirty, they'll get broken, they'll get cracked, they'll get scattered, buried under the bedding. But at this time, you might find her flockmates picking on her. When she's just starting to go broody, they'll often see her broodiness as an illness, or they just don't understand or recognise why she's acting differently, so they'll cast her out. If this is happening, it could be a good idea to try moving her. Now, it's early in her brood, so there is the risk of breaking the brood by moving her at this point. So if it's possible to just block her off from them where she is, that gives her the best chance. It won't interfere with her broodiness and they will leave her alone. Mythbuster number 2. Leave her with the flock, she'll be fine. I will always separate a broody hen once I'm sure she's fixed on sitting on those eggs. So if it's her first time to brood, I would leave it 3, even 4 days before I would try moving her, because the broodiness should really have set in at this stage. The flockmates can become savage towards her. Also, because a broody is sitting on the nest all the time, curiosity builds up among her flockmates, and then once she leaves the nest to eat, etc., the other chickens can go into the nest to check it out, and they can ruin everything. They'll scratch around in the nest, sending the eggs scattering, breaking them, burying them under the bedding, and they can decide not to allow her to return to the nest. Sometimes this doesn't happen, but why take the risk? Or it can all go smoothly while she's sitting, but once the chicks start hatching, the other chickens can kill them. Some roosters will help raise chicks, but most roosters will attack the chicks as he sees them as intruders, and that's his job. So I move her. In her new space, she will need food and water accessible, enough room to run around and exercise, and somewhere to dust bathe. It takes on average 21 days to hatch out chicks, so she's going to be in the area for quite some time. So make it comfortable for her and accessible to you, because you'll need to keep the area nice and clean and refresh her water and her food. Once she is committed to sitting on the nest, I like to give it 24 hours after she sits tight to make sure she doesn't decide she's not that interested after all. This is when you slip the eggs under her, the eggs that you want her to hatch. You want to do this at night. Reach in under her, take out the fake eggs, and one by one place the hatching eggs under her. A broody hen will often try to kill your hand as you put your hand in under her, so wear long sleeves, cover your hand, because you want to cup the egg and keep your hand between her and the egg so that she doesn't peck the egg and break it or crack it before you put it under her. Check on her first thing the following morning to ensure all the eggs are still under her. Sometimes one or two will be laying beside her. Pop these back under her. Again, your hand always between her and the egg to protect the egg. Mythbuster number 3. A hen will always know if an egg is not going to hatch and she'll toss it out, and therefore so should you. Not true. This is not always the case. I have many times put eggs back underneath her and they more often than not hatch. Sometimes it is a bad egg she tosses out, but usually it's not, and I'll come back to this briefly in a moment. There's a good chance she just hasn't quite gotten the hang of this broody thing yet, but she should get there with a little bit of help from you. Your broody hen will turn the eggs multiple times, just like you if you were using an incubator, and sometimes an egg can escape from underneath her as she's doing this, so just pop it back on. She looks after turning the eggs, the heat and the humidity, so she's not just sitting there. She's got a job to do, and that's her first and sometimes only priority. It generally takes chicken eggs 21 days for the eggs to hatch. The first day you put the eggs under her is when the eggs are set. So this means the temperature of the broody hen begins slowly heating the eggs to begin the incubation phase. This is day 0. The following day is day 1. So you don't count the first day. You start the countdown, the 21-day incubation countdown, from the second day, the day after you set the eggs. Mythbuster number 4. When a hen goes broody, leave her be for the 21 days she knows what to do. Not true. Not every hen does know what to do, especially if it's her first time brooding. So you need to check on her. You need to make sure everything's going okay. You may have to pop an egg in here or there. Broody hens go into a zone, sometimes forgetting to even eat. So if she's not leaving the nest at least once a day, you're going to need to make sure she does. Because some will sit on the nest adamantly, ignoring all their own needs. So you may need to step in here. Lift her off the nest and just leave her down near her food and water or away from the nest, and she'll snap out of the zone for long enough to do what she needs to do. It may take a few minutes for her to snap out, but she will. It could be difficult to actually see her leaving the nest because they tend to do it very first thing in the morning. But keep your eyes and your nose open for that broody poop. There's nothing like it. They're huge and they stink. So if you don't see a broody poop in her area in the morning, pop her out off the nest and she'll go and she'll eat and she'll drink, and she may dust bathe and she may go crazy around the area that she's in. It's very funny to watch, and then she'll set back in on the eggs. Don't worry if she's off the eggs for a good while. I've had hens stay off the nest for 3, even 4 hours, and the eggs still hatched. If a broody hen does stay off the nest for a prolonged period of time, once she gets back in there, within, I would say 5 hours at the most, because the eggs will be gone cold. But once she gets back in there, it should be fine. All it will really do is it could delay the hatch a little bit. So it could be day 22 when they hatch, or even day 23, 24. But I have found it doesn't actually cause any problems. So why do we intervene here? Brooding hens will lose up to 1/3 their body weight during the 21 days incubating period. This is when they are actually getting off the nest once a day to eat and do what they need to do. So they cannot afford to miss days eating. So if they don't get up off the nest themselves, you need to step in and get them off that nest. You may see people saying, let them on, they'll sort it out themselves, but this is not best practice. It's to the detriment of your broody hen's health. She needs to be as healthy as possible to succeed here. Also, hens that are sitting, they are magnets to mites and lice. So she needs to get off that nest and preen herself and have a dust bath to stop an infestation. And the exercise and fresh air will benefit her greatly during this time. When they leave the nest, they'll often go a little crazy, running around, squawking, squaring up to other flockmates. They need to be able to release the energy that's built up from sitting on the nest. On day 10, I candle the eggs to see what's going on, if they're working, growing, and to make sure none of them have gotten cracked so far. There are lots of online tutorials on how to candle eggs. It's basically placing a strong, bright light gently against the rounded side of the egg to look through the egg and be able to see if there's an embryo developing. It's amazing. I've literally candled thousands of eggs, and still each time I look into the egg, it gives me butterflies to see the little embryo moving around and jumping in there. If all the eggs seem to be developing properly, that's great and that's what you're looking for, and you can relax a little. On day 18, I candle again. And the reason for this is because if there are any eggs that are not working or unfortunately haven't made it, they can actually explode under the hen, and the other hatchlings will be affected, and there's lots of bacteria involved, and the hen will be destroyed. So you need to toss any eggs at this point that are not working. And this is also where you'll discover whether any eggs she tossed out along the way that you've popped back under her are actually fine, or whether there might have been something wrong with them. So on day 19, the eggs go on lockdown, just like in an incubator. The hen sits tight on them. The little embryo inside the egg begins to turn to get into the position to hatch out of the egg. So from day 19, she will often not leave the nest. So at this point, you put in some chick starter and some water very close to her so that she doesn't need to leave the nest. So she will be on chick starter from this time, and it's only going to do her good. Chick starter is high protein, and because of all the weight she'll have lost brooding and everything, it's going to benefit her, so it's a good thing for her to be eating anyway. And this brings us to the next mythbuster. Chicks can eat whatever you've always been feeding your flock. No, they can't. They need chick crumb. They certainly can't eat layers pellets because of the high calcium content, and growers just doesn't have enough protein in it, so they need chick crumb. This is a very exciting time, and these last few days will seem to take forever for everyone involved. For you, for your broody hen. Day 20, the chicks will start the tiring process of trying to get through that shell. So what they do is they have a little milk toot on their beak, and they'll start scratching away at the inner shell of the egg, and they'll stay at it until they pip a little hole, and they'll give it another little bash, and then they will rest for about 24 hours, perhaps longer. It's only now that they're actually breathing the air. So they need to rest now. They need to adjust to breathing the new air. So once they give that initial little pip, don't panic when nothing else is happening. They need to rest now for a while before they begin the long process of zipping around the shell of the egg so that they can pop out. From this time, if you're close to the nest, you can actually hear them chirping, even though they're inside the egg. It's magic. And mama hen will be clucking back to them. So there's communication going on, even though there's no chicks yet, there's just eggs. When the baby chicks do hatch, they're going to be wet. So they'll need to dry off and fluff up before they're safe to come out from under mama and start exploring. So this is why you want to make sure mama doesn't have to get up off the nest. So the food and water is there. I will say though, if at all possible, do use a proper chick waterer for the water, because chicks are at a high risk of drowning. If you need to use something else to give them water, place some stones or pebbles in the water so that they can't drown if they fall over at the water. The hatching can run into day 22 or even 23, so don't worry too much if nothing's happening. And again, if it's a first time broody, remember if she leaves the nest for prolonged periods of time, it can draw out the hatching date. Leave her be, but stay close by. For the first few days after the chicks hatch, they'll be absorbing the egg yolk that they got in the egg, so they don't actually need to eat, but the sooner they start eating the better, and the stronger they'll be for it. Mom is going to be starving anyway, so having the chick starter right there and the water will allow her to eat while the chicks are hatching away. Mythbuster number 6. Any hen who sits on eggs for 21 days will raise their chicks. Not always true, unfortunately. Some mamas panic when the chicks start hatching, and they can attack and kill the chicks. So again, with first time broodies, you need to be very close on hand to watch what's going on around hatch time. You may need to take those chicks. Now, I personally believe the reason they attack the chicks is because in the dark nest box, when chicks hatch, they sound like and look like mice. And you may know hens attack and kill mice. I've seen mice tossed from the nest. So a mouse could go into the nest when they're sitting in the nest, even just laying an egg. They'll kill it and toss it, and they can even eat it. And unfortunately, when the chicks hatch, this is what can happen. So I believe Mama is used to the eggs. She's even used to the chirping eggs. But once the chicks hatch, she's not used to this, and she can her protective instinct can kick in, and she'll toss the chicks. So not recognizing what's happening, she can very quickly kill them and stay sitting on the other eggs. So there is a way. I have found ways to make this work anyway, to get her through this, and where she does bond with the chicks and will raise them. But there's a few steps involved, and that's for another video. So you need to watch closely around day 21 to make sure everything's going okay. And for this reason, it's best to have a backup plan for the chicks. If you happen to have another broody hen who's experienced in raising chicks, that's wonderful. But you'll need to place the chicks under her at night time for the best chance of success. So either way, you're going to need to have a brooder with a heat source ready and waiting in case you need to take the chicks either full time or on time until night time, when you can place them under your experienced broody hen. Now generally, the broody hen will instantly fall in love with the new chicks. As soon as the chicks hatch and dry off underneath her, she'll begin showing them how to eat and drink, where the food and water are, and she'll continuously cluck at them, constantly communicating with them. It's genuinely a pleasure to watch, and no matter how many times I've seen it, it's the best TV ever. You will be so proud of her, you'll burst with pride, and she will be so proud of herself, and she will dote on those babies, and it's all just fabulous. Mythbuster number 7. Mama will raise the chicks until they're fully feathered and no longer need her to keep them warm. Not always the case. So again, it's always a good idea to have that brooder set up with a heat source in case of an emergency. Again, particularly first time mamas can decide their job is complete a little too early, even after 1, 2, 3 weeks, when the chicks definitely still need heat, especially at night, for another few weeks. If the outdoor temperatures are mild or warm, the chicks should be fine from around 6 weeks onwards, but you'll need to look after them until at least then. Once Mama decides she's done, she's done. You'll have to take them, as she will peck them away and they'll get terribly distressed, and she can severely injure them or kill them if you leave them with her once she's done. And then on the other hand, some mamas will raise them up and then just continue living together as one big happy family. So my next video is going to be on how to raise baby chicks in a brooder. It's another wonderful experience, and I'm excited to create another video focusing on baby chicks. Let me know in the comments if you have a broody hen at the moment and what stage she's at. As always, leave any questions you have in the comments and they will be addressed. And don't forget to give the thumbs up to the video if you liked it. I'd really appreciate it. And subscribe if you so wish. You'll get notified of all the new videos. I make 1 to 2 videos a week, and then I do shorts also. Okay, good luck guys, and I'll see you in the next video.